So much, Rakhi, for the introduction, and thank you so much for inviting me and letting me speak about my experiences. And I hope that the audience here tends to gain something from what I have learned from my journey so far. So, hi everybody. I have been a product manager for almost 7 years now, and I started my journey as a software developer. And it was actually a business analyst back in Accenture. And then I did my MBA, and I was placed with ICICI Bank, where I started my product journey. And I have worked with fintech, almost all my career, apart from one or two stints where I was working with the retail group Future Group. And I have also been associated with firms like RBL Bank, PolicyBazaar, Home Credit, and recently I shifted to American Express as the in their fraud and risk team. So sort of seen it, done it all kind of a career, and I have been a TPM, I have been a product owner, I have been a Scrum Master, I have been a Agile product manager, I have been a technical product manager, a product marketing manager. So after seeing all these aspects, different roles, and how this can enrich your overall product journey, and just align with what you tend to do in the industry. So I think it's been really fruitful. So yeah, thank you. And it'll be great if all of you can show me your lovely faces, and it'll be more interactive that way.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
Thanks, Tanya. It was lovely to hear from you about your introduction. And we will start with the session. We have some queries from learners beforehand. So we'll start with those first, and then we'll open the platform for our other members to share their queries and ask questions directly from you.
Ciao.
So our first question has come from one of our learner, that what does the PM in fintech domain does? What is the role?
Okay, so before we begin with the Q&A session, it will be lovely if you guys can just put in, what exactly is your current role and what exactly you guys are, in the chat box. So that just to get a sense for me to, maybe give you more relatable examples, I think it will be a more fruitful discussion. So just drop in your comments and, start, putting it across in the chat box. So coming back to your question, Rakhi, that what exactly a PM does in a fintech company, it's pretty much like what a regular PM does. So right from where you're strategizing about a product to gathering requirements, creating those PRDs, BRDs, giving those requirements, translating them to the developers, the tech team, aligning them for sprints, getting them delivered, UAT testing, go-to-market strategies, and then probably you're also defining and chasing those matrices around your feature or your product. So most of this life cycle is pretty similar to what a normal PM does. I think where there is a value addition or where there's a difference would be because in fintech you're essentially dealing with money, right? And it's a very high stakes sort of industry, high stakes sort of a role. So you're working very closely with engineering, design, analytics, marketing. And apart from all of that, as a fintech PM, you're also working with compliance, risk, legal, fraud, credit operations, partnership teams, business operation teams, sales teams at the point of sales, and probably a lot of these accounting management people. So all of these different aspects when you're in a financial industry come into play, and it's very essential as well because come to think of it, if you're building a journey for, let's say, a lending app, so unless and until all the regulations behind what your feature would affect, you would not be able to roll out a complete feature, and in fact it might be just rejected by RBI. So you need to be very cognizant of how your feature is going to look like, what kind of backend integrations you can do, what kind of regulations you need to take care of, how the compliance will come into picture. So right from the very beginning, even at the time of requirement gathering, you tend to involve your legal teams, your risk teams, your partners, and that's where you get insights into whether what you're building actually makes sense for the end user or whether it's going to be discarded. So that's very imperative when you're working as a fintech pay.
Great. So basically, for a recruiter, what kind of what does a recruiter look for in a resume for a fintech opportunities?
Okay, so basically, see, let me just probably go a step back. So when we talk about fintech, right, fintech is nothing but financial technology, right? So essentially, and nowadays the landscape is such that, all companies want to become, I would say, fintech companies, and all fintech companies would want to become traditional companies. So, there's like a tussle going on. So, Amazon would have Amazon Pay, Flipkart would have Flipkart Coins to just get into that space. And, all the big banks would have their e-commerce journeys integrated because they want to get into the e-commerce space. So there's like a tussle going on, right? So it's very essential that, nowadays, I think those lines are pretty blurred when it comes to recruitment. A lot of fintech companies are not essentially looking for a fintech background per se. Uh, if you are a credit card user, if you have a bank account in one of the banks, if you are a regular user of a payment app, you're anyways qualified to join any of the fintech companies because you have been at the consumer end of things, right? You have experienced the journeys, you can look at the nuances, and you can even jot down the customer pain points being in the shoes of a customer. So all these things actually matter when you're talking about it in the interviews. And I think if I have to really narrow down that, what skills really matter, I can, narrow down to, let's say, basic financial knowledge. So, how really payments happen, or how payment processing happens, or how credit card actually works, how what is the operating business model of bigger banks, what is the revenue generation model. So these simple things which probably anybody in today's world with so much of information over the internet would have this information. So transaction banking, or lending, these are some of the buzzwords any which ways. So it's just even if you are like a regular reader of such blogs, or you're there out there in the market, or you have dealt with customers or partners in your current role who are into fintech space, I think you will be in a good position to sort of pitch yourself for that role to the new recruiter. And I think apart from this domain knowledge, there's also some essential elements that recruiters really look at. So some of the things could be like analytical skills. Analytical skills are very essential for a PM anywhere, but in fintech, it is all the more important because you have to do a lot of number crunching. And it's not that you have to be good in maths or accounts for that. It's just that, because even when you're building a product strategy, you need to figure out the competition landscape. You need to figure out how, or what kind of revenue stream this new feature or product is going to bring to your existing portfolio of products. So all of these decisions, all of these analysis needs to be done. And if you come on the other side, a lot of analytics is also happening on the consumer behavior data, right? So let's say you're in the lending space and you're creating a seamless lending journey, right? Or a auto approval of a loan on an app. So will that you would want to know that in how many clicks does a user actually finish their form filling of a loan, or in how many steps is the user completing their transaction journey. So all of these small things actually kind of matter. And if you have that basic idea about user experience design, if you have basic knowledge on product design, product analytics, it's really going to help you in a long way. So I think, yeah, these are some of these skills. And if I have to really put one more, I think it's a lot of stakeholder management, which has to come because, like I said, legal, compliance, risk, there are like so many teams. And from my personal experience, guys, I would tell you one thing. It's very, very difficult to make a very non-techie legal guy understand what you're trying to build, right? And at the same time, it is very difficult to make understand a developer who is from a core technical background, the legal aspects of things. And you are the person who is sitting in the middle of both of these kind of things, right? So they are looking up to you to establish that connect. So, writing seamless BRD, PRDs, explaining what exactly you're trying to build, mentioning those requirements clearly in your documentation, translating them to your teams, all of that comes in, as a handy skill if you have that. So communication, stakeholder management, all of this, really helps. I see your hand, I guess. Yeah, Pranav.
Yeah.
So now, as you just mentioned that, okay, this technical guy would require more of like, okay, an understanding how this application would be working, what flow user journey would be happening, and they don't have the any single clue about the financial industry.
Yeah.
On the other hand, on the business side, they are the one who's actually running the product schemes, whatever the banks or the non-NBFCs are trying to run. Now, being a product manager, it shows that if we have to make the dots connected among these folks, we need to be very much fulfilled with full of all the knowledge, legal aspect, compliance aspects,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that require now fintech right now is just not for the payment processing. It's going for lending. It's going for mortgage. It's going for many other aspects
So
that's
many
coming in
things.
the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
So now a person at the moment who has not gone through his basic studies of e-commerce, right? Bachelor in commerce or like something which actually gives him an upper advantage. Uh, is the real choice for him is to only go through the Google and update himself, whatever raw data is coming, or is
So
there a way?
yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, but I'll tell you about me, right? I am an engineer with a bio background. I had nothing to do with finance or commerce or accounts. In fact, I was so bad in accounts in my MBA, I was almost failing. Right, I didn't take any extra credits in finance subjects in my MBA. I was really bad, in short. But when I entered into fintech, not even one day did I feel that this is not something I can learn. This is not something that I'm not ready for. Because, and I'll tell you why. Especially when you enter companies like big banks, like I was with ICICI Bank, right? So they have very, very well documented set of SOPs and SORs. So you don't have to actually go and sit and become an expert in it. The legal team is actually the expert. What you are trying to do is to come at a level where you have understanding of the nuances what legal team is trying to say. I'll give you an example. I was working on this journey for user signups. It was like a sign up journey for a lending app. And now the requirement, so earlier if you remember, the loans were used to be getting filled in those long paper forms, right? And there two signatures were required as per the RBI guidelines. Now the legal team came to me and they said, no, we will need two OTPs in the user journey, right? Because in their mind, OTP equals to signatures. And that is how they translate it. But the tech team says, hey, dude, what kind of product you're making? Why will I send two OTPs at the same time for the same customer in the same journey? So that's where you actually add in value. You are trying to understand the legal team that how one signature is not equal to one OTP and how you are seamlessly also at the same time working on this customer experience. So that's where you add in your value and you go to legal team and say that, okay, one OTP is completely fine. You don't need two signatures or two OTPs. And at the same time, the tech is also satisfied because they don't have to do the additional bill, right? So you don't have to know which law or which para of which subclause says what, right? If you have a journal nuance of what RBI guidelines say, so there are so many guidelines around digital lending framework and payments, and every day RBI is coming up with new and new regulations. All you need to do is that you just need to be aware of what's happening in this space. So for example, recently tokenization came, right? Simple concept that you don't have to use the numbers and there'll be a token from RBI for your credit card numbers. So all you need to do is to think it like a mathematical or an analytical problem, like a case study. How will you solve that problem? So you don't have to know in-depth knowledge of legal. You don't have to know in-depth finance or balance sheet or credit or debit. Even I don't know, and I have survived 8 years in fintech, right? So it's completely fine, even if you don't know it. All you need to do is to apply common sense where it is necessary, apply analytical sense where it is necessary, product sense, and put yourself in customer shoes so that you can be the best evangelist of the customer. So that's my advice.
Okay.
Yeah. I do see a couple of questions in the chat box as well. So Rakesh, should we complete your list first and then go?
Those also. So basically just wanted to add on, if I want to summarize the previous questions, So what are the 3 critical skills you would suggest or are required to be assessed in the fintech domain for a PM interview?
So if I have to really summarize, I can say that, you have to be creative, innovative, problem solver. So like I said, every feature or every product comes to you as a problem. So if you are innovative, creative, analytical enough to solve that problem, it could be in any industry, it could be in any stream, and I think you will be able to solve it. So I think that's one. Second should be that you have to be flexible, right? So even if you're coming from, let's say, a gaming industry and moving to a fintech industry, so you have to let go of your previous baggage. So I'll give you an example. We had a colleague in my last company who had come from a very non-fintech background, almost a media background, and he had joined fintech. So he took a couple of months to get into the nitty-gritties of, okay, some of the terminologies he was not able to understand, but little extra effort in the first or the second month, where you are like, googling a bit of stuff, where you're understanding exactly, okay, how payment processing is happening, or what's a chargeback rate, or how fraud is being calculated, or what's an approval rate, these little terminologies of whatever product you're working on, and I think you're totally sorted. So just be flexible. Do not come with that baggage of your previous job that, okay, mujhe to kuch aata nahi hai, how will I manage? Don't get into that stream. I see a lot of people going through imposter syndromes and uh, just failing in their current jobs because they are not able to align themselves with the new role, or there are fitment issues. So do not panic in the previous months, even if you're not understanding the industry. Go home, do a little bit of research, talk to your friends in the same industry, and I think you'll be sorted. And I think the last would be communication. Like I said, it is the most important thing for any PM role, and especially in fintech, because that clarity, that no error, thinking, because even a small mistake can lead to humongous implications when you are in fintech, right? 1 0 here and there, right? One uh, wrong code, or one transaction not happening successfully. It's somebody's hard-earned money you're playing with. So you just have to be very thorough, very insightful, and I think just attention to that detail is something that and that's what recruiters also look for. That's what you should be putting in your resume as well.
Great. Thank you for narrowing the critical skills required. So we have the next question as, can you please elaborate on what all in fintech umbrella comes?
Okay. So fintech, like I said, it's going to be a 1.3 billion industry very soon, probably by 2025, and it's huge. The way it's going right now, and there are many sub parts to it. So I actually have a very nice image to show you guys. Let me just see if I can share my screen. So let me know if this is visible to you guys.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I actually took out this image from one of the websites, and I really liked it, the way they had put it. So these are some of the fintech startups that have come up recently into this space. And if I have to really put in what all is in the umbrella, I mean, you can chuck the brands for now, but just look at the left part of things, where you can see uh, anyways, we started with payments, let's say, in early part of the decade, and then we had portfolio management and investments. So where we have Zero Dha, where we have Grow, and so many new age robo companies as well coming up. Then we have InsurTech. InsurTech is also pretty early. PolicyBazaar coming into picture, and now Echo, Toffee Insurance. All of these startups, they have really come into the space of InsurTech, where you are like, aggregating different policy aggregator, policy companies, and a seamless user experience, where you can, not only just compare to two or more insurances, you can purchase it in the click of a go, and you can even claim with your with these partners of PolicyBazaar. So, and I have worked in PolicyBazaar, and I can say that they have grown tremendously, and they were almost like they had the first mover advantage in the market. And right now, a lot of bite size insurance, if you guys know about it, it's like micro insurance sector wherein, small sized insurance is being offered. So I think Toffee is one company that is doing that. So, just like a Toffee small package insurance, so 10 rupees, 12 rupees, like that. You must have seen while booking a flight ticket on MMT, you get those 100 rupee insurance on your luggage and all of that, right? So that's, sort of a small sachet type insurance products. And we also have the lending marketplace. So now one is lending space where we have, different sorts of lendings. It could be corporate lending like bigger banks, or even S&P and JP Morgans of the world. Or it could be SME lending where we have, smaller sized companies who are giving out loans to the people. So Pred B, and there are other few players in the market. Consumer based lending. So that's where I was working with HomeCredit for. So consumer durable lending is one space where you are actually financing consumer durables. So, mobile phone, gadgets, washing machines, TVs, ACs. And these are the TG where people are not really getting loans from bigger banks because, let's say, their CIBIL is not good, or they're not well qualified, or they don't have a good credit history. So that's where these, lending marketplaces come into picture. Instant, consumer durable loans. Bajaj Finance, in fact, is one of the OG players, I would say, in this market. They are mostly offline. Then we have P2P lending. We have financial inclusion. A lot of these, microfinancing and rural lending has come into picture. NIRA is one of the, I would say, spearheading ones in this space, and they are really, doing a lot of good work, giving out loans to very tier 4, tier 5 sort of people, to women empowerment. So a lot of work is happening in that space. Then we have neobanks. It's pretty new. Neobanks are not really even regularized in the Indian market. But in UK, Europe, and US market, Revolut is one of the players, if you would have heard of. They are one of the, best neobanks. So neobanks is nothing but, no physical assets, all digitalized banking. And I think Razorpay has recently entered that market, and let's see, it'll be good to see what kind of stuff they are bringing. Then we have embedded finance, which I was talking about earlier, like, Flipkart Coins or Amazon Pay and Ola Money and, GPay. All of these are like embedded finance. So they're not traditionally finance companies, but they have a financial angle to it. So, all these companies who have an embedded wallet inside, right? So they are trying to be financial companies. All of that is embedded finance. We have RegTech as well. RegTech is a new space. A lot of people don't know about it. It's actually regulatory tech. Regulatory tech means that, where you are sort of bridging the gap between regulators like RBI or IDI, and then you're also at the other end, giving these services or open APIs or open APIs to payment gateways or, consumer durable companies or lending companies who essentially do not own banking licenses or NBFCs. So some of them are like Perfios, Authbridge, Digio. They have really come up, and I think they are very, very essential in order to bring that seamlessness to the user experience of lending right now. Because what happens is that, instantly, just by putting users' phone number in one of their APIs, you can get an approval or get an authentication done at the backend immediately. And it's all Aadhaar based, or it's all, very, very secured. So they are really changing the game, and I think it's a huge opportunity area for upcoming NBFCs as well. And then we have some enablers as well in the market, like Decentrio or Digital Fifth. They're also a lot of into financial literacy and allied services, where they're just empowering people to know more about financial sector and how things are happening. So that was something that I wanted to just share with you guys overall how things are in fintech.
Yeah, this really helps, Tanya. Thank you for sharing the entire detail. Just a follow-up question on this. Different types of product roles available in the fintech of a product market.
So I think, frankly, roles do not really differ that much, especially in the product space. So I can give you a general overview of how different product roles are. So, one is a product manager role, which is essentially, I think, one of the most abused ones as well. Product manager bol ke kuch bhi karwate hain aajkal. So, a product manager is what we all are, and sort of doing everything right from business requirements gathering till the launch and matrices, and following up of all of that. Then there's a product marketing role. I was in one of the product marketing roles. It essentially entails thinking about what product you want to bring to the market, what would be the go-to-market strategy, how the competition is working, what features would you want, what will be the look and feel of it, the wireframing part. Sometimes you have to, onboard strategic partners. So those SLAs and commission discussions with those partners, all of that comes under product marketing role. So you are not only looking at just the technical, or I would say enablement side of things, but also at the business side of things. So revenue or book size or P&L is also something that you own as a product marketing manager. And it also entails a lot of product marketing stuff. So writing SMS, email content, collaterals, getting into, if you're in a bigger company, maybe even television ads, radio ads. So all of that marketing, collateral, content writing, you have to, initiate with your marketing content teams and work on those creatives. So, that is product marketing for you guys. Then we have something called as a product owner role. Product owners are essentially in an agile setup where you are the bridge between the Scrum team and your business teams. So as a product owner, you could have a different business PM, on the other side, and you could have the developers or QA or testers on the one other side, and you're sort of, doing a sprint planning, setting up those agile ceremonies, daily stand-ups. You're working very closely with the developers basically, and you are responsible for fulfilling the sprints, how the quality of those deliverables are, getting it on time and getting it tested. So it's more like a project management sort of role. We also have some other roles like project management, which are pretty loosely in consulting or other fields as well. We also have product analytics. So some people who have a very good background in analytics or business analytics, they are essentially BAs. They sometimes act as those, they are part of those data teams who are responsible for giving out insights about, let's say, your customer behavior data, or how your transaction history is happening, or what kind of newer products could be built based on those. They would essentially apply machine learning or Python or these logics to the data to figure out more usable matrices out of it, and then give advice to the product team that what we can build this now around based on what your data is talking. So these are some of the roles. And apart from this, there are also business product managers. So essentially, so product marketing and business product managers are very close. But in some of the companies, business product managers just focus on launching a product. And so, for example, a product is a revolving credit. Okay, a revolving credit product. Let's call it a flexible loan. Now, you are a business product manager, so you will be responsible for setting the pricing of it, or setting the commissions of it, or setting at what discount rates you should be giving, what chargeback fees would it happen, or what should be the approval rate. You're discussing and sitting with your risk and compliance teams to understand that. And then you're ruling it out in the market. Which markets should we target first? Where should the pilot go? And probably you're also at the other end taking a lot of user interviews to understand, okay, how you can improve the product, or you are doing a lot of A/B testing around it. So those are business product managers as well. So it completely differs, and more or less it remains in one of these fields itself.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. I guess Vivek had some question.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
All right. Okay, I saw someone raising. Oh, all right. So we'll move ahead. We have some questions in the, I think Kishore is having some queries.
Yeah.
Yes, over to you, Kishore.
Yes, actually, as you're saying that when RBI guidelines comes, like updated in RBI guidelines, so as a product manager, how we auditing those things, and how we implement into actual product?
When you say auditing, what do you mean essentially?
Suppose there is some changes, like you are saying token processes came out. So you have to observe those things in a market, and how we can implement in our actual product.
Yeah. So okay, there are two aspects to it. One, the first part of your question is how will you know about it, and what will you do, right? So there are teams, for example, like I said, legal teams, whose job on a daily basis is to get to know about these regulations, right? So RBI, whenever they launch a new regulation, they send out circulars to all banks, NBFCs, related parties, and they also publish it on their websites publicly. It's all over the news. So that's where your legal team or your compliance team will pick it up. Then, if it is specific to your product, they will reach out to you and they will ask you that, hey, you know what, this new regulation has come up. First of all, stop what you're doing. So you may have to immediately put a switch off to your current transactions, because hey, overnight RBI का मन बदला, कुछ तो हो गया, ठीक है, धंधा बंद. So अभी morning में, now what is happening is that you are going in analyzing each word of that new regulation along with your legal team to understand what tweaks can you do as an MVP, as a minimum viable product to your, because now business is closed, right? So how immediately can you start at least some sort of business? So you start segregating what parts can I still switch on, what parts do I need to switch off. And then, that's where you're strategizing with your business product managers, with yourself, with your developers, what could be a quick fix, what could we roll out in a minimum possible time. And once you do that, then you go back, sit with your legal team even more to understand that, what could be eventual rollout of the feature that would help or satisfy RBI, right? So tokenization is one example, but I'll give you one more. For example, there are so many frameworks around lending, right? So sometimes RBI's whims and fantasies, they would one day say that, hey, this just requires, let's say, no signatures, and at the end, even if you have taken a consent, it's fine. So recently they came with a thing that, a consent could not be taken by default. So just say if you see that green tick on a journey, you cannot put I agree to it as a green tick as default in the journey. The user has to go and click on it to get it the green tick. So these small things, right?
Yeah.
So these kind of things, you have to go back, go with your developers and say, hey, you know what, I need that small change in my code base. Now developer will also take some time, review the code base, see where they can make changes, roll out in testing, roll out in production. All this will take time. So, it's a long process. So it's not like something overnight changes at RBI. They always give you time. So RBI, whenever they launch a regulation, they always say that, okay, we are giving you time till 30th November, 30th January. It is
there will be a deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll always be deadlines. But what happens, in real life is the banks and the NBFCs don't take those guidelines seriously. So legal team will keep pinging product team, acha, this regulation had come 2 months back, now 3 months back, now 4 months back, deadline is closing. And product teams are like, okay, you know what, come later. And that is very, very, like I'm telling you with experience, it's very casual. But yeah, now RBI is actually becoming very, very stringent. It is not like what they used to be 5 years or 10 years ago. Yeah. Things are rapidly moving. And since there are so many newer players in the market who are so agile in the way they develop things, that they overnight come up with new features, right? So these big banks, big NBFCs also have to move into that agile fashion and make sure that they are, doing all these changes as and when required, and so that the customers are not hampered. See, ultimately, everything is around customer. The experience, or if a customer is used to one sort of journey, and the next day, you're setting up something else, you need to also educate the customer that, with videos or with written communication, with FAQs, that how you have changed the journey, what now is extra. So those pop-ups in your journey, all of that you need to incorporate. So, it's not just auditing or you being aware, it is a whole lot of exercise that goes into it.
Fine. Thank you.
And this is a technical product manager as well.
Yeah, Pranav, can you repeat, please?
Yeah. So normally you mention about product analyst, product owner, and so all of those are. So what we are intending here, that okay, we will be the business side facing and understanding the need and requirement, and understanding what user experience that would be coming, and we are plotting the those information to the next party. Now there's another team as well who actually they are known by the technical product managers, and basically I should summarize them to like, okay, they are BAs who are working closely with the Scrum owners, Scrum team basically. So now for being a technical product managers, they have to be updated with the latest trend of technology that has been going on, the specification that has to be utilized.
Yes.
So that's the part.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, I based out on that. So I was a technical product manager in Future Group. So where technical product manager differentiates himself or herself is that, you know, you are right in terms of saying that they are working very closely with the Scrum teams, but they also are working very closely with, let's say, infrastructure teams or cloud team or, you know, data team, data lakes team, or those sort of teams, because that's where they are adding their value, where they are, let's say, you know, looking at latency of a server, or what's the hit rate of transactions on a particular server, what is the downtime like, and you know, all those questions which require deep understanding of technical knowledge. So what kind of APIs would be helpful, which integration should we go for, should it be a regular PWA or should it be like an embedded thing, or what should it be an API integration? All these sort of questions come into picture when you're a TPM. And when it comes to regulations, I think it is sort of the PM's responsibility more than the TPM's responsibility, because I would still say TPM is more closely working with the systems per se, the code base or the developers. Their job would be probably to strategize, okay, how quickly or how should I implement this regulation into my product or my feature. Whether the PM is actually the one who's deciding that, you know, which regulation is more important to their product or feature, or whether it is even applicable to them or not. So those decisions are somewhere. And if some company, you know, calls that single person TPM who's doing all the job, then like I said, you know, it's a very abused term. Everybody is a PM nowadays, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. More questions?
Queries coming in the chat box, and we open the platform anyhow with our audience to share their queries. So there are few in the chat box which I'll just read through. Can a non-fintech tech PM move to a fintech?
Yes,
So
yes, definitely, Sahil. Yes, non-fintech PM can move to fintech as a PM, because, like I said, you know, if you're just generally aware of how you know, a credit card works, or you just have basic knowledge about transaction processing, about, you know, if you have yourself taken a loan, have yourself do have a savings bank account, so you know, you can easily tear down products in fintech. And nowadays there is so much collaboration between, let's say, e-commerce or insurtech or hashtag and all those umbrellas I showed you under the fintech category, right? So it is just the entry where you can break into product management in fintech, right? So you can get into a payment gateway company, or you can get into, let's say, a lending company, or you can get into a payments wallet company, or it could be some company who has some fintech component, work for there for a couple of years and then leverage that experience to a proper fintech company. So for example, when I was working with retail giant Future Group, we had a small Future wallet within the retail space, right? So people who were working in that wallet space moved out to bigger fintechs like Razorpay, even Revolut. Somebody even moved to US to work in Stripe. So you know, you can always do all of those things, and opportunities are, I think, humongous. All you need to do is to just be, you know, maybe probably follow a couple of blogs, uh, just be industry aware of what's happening, what are the, you know, new age trends in fintech, and just, you know, be an analytical person. If you're able to crack those interviews, I think it all boils down to cracking those interviews, tweaking your resume to showcase that you have those skills which the fintech person also requires. See, no fintech company will write that they need a, you know, fully fledged legal compliance person as a product manager, right? They would know industry knowledge is a plus or a brownie point like thing. So you can just, you know, read about the industry, get to know some stuff, and leverage that knowledge in your interviews. And I think you can easily crack fintech interviews. I have had so many colleagues coming from different backgrounds. I know it is a little bit difficult because what really happens is resume shortlisting is done by HRs, and HRs just to, you know, do their job easier, they would put your resume in a algorithm or a, you know, those machine learning tools, and, you know, it just does a word matching sort of a thing. So I would suggest, try to look at the JD of the fintech company you're applying to, and try to use those same buzzwords that they are doing on your own experience, so that there is a perfect match, and it really helps in getting shortlisted. And once you're shortlisted, read a bit about the company, what their revenue model is, what their operating model is, how they're doing business, and leverage that knowledge in your interviews, and I think you will be good to go.
Absolutely. So matching the keywords and resume is must while you apply for a specific sector. So we have another question from Sahil. Do fintech also conduct user research to improve or build the product, or is it just self-intuitive
Okay.
or
Sahil, I would
generalized
want to know
approach to
what you
build the
do.
fintech product?
Yeah.
to
Sahil, I
fulfill
would
the-
want to know which company you're working in, if you can come up.
Yeah, Tanya. So I work for Monotype. It's a font industry, and we build various application, e-commerce, and as well as B2B SaaS applications to sell the fonts.
Okay. So
And
do you do user research when you're building e-commerce journeys?
sorry.
Do you do user research when you're building those e-commerce journeys?
Yes.
Right. Similarly, in a fintech company, you're building journeys, right? You're building a lending journey, or a payment journey, or a transaction journey, or a remittance journey. So why will they not do user research? Definitely. In fact, it is even more important to do user research in a fintech industry. And I'll tell you why. For example, uh, you know, what do you think is the okay, you are the product manager of, let's say, microfinancing startup, right? What do you think is your target group? What do you think is your customer base?
Sorry to say, but I'm not aware about the
Okay, so
microfinancing.
they are somebody from a tier 2 or a tier 3, 4 kind of space, right? Villages, or
Okay.
people who are not in big cities, right? So they, in fact, would not have that knowledge of about fintech terms. They will not even know what is a application, you know, words like approval or words like consent. So, you know, from my own experience, I'm telling you, these are some of the things. In fact, user research is so more important in these kind of fields, because using the right word to explain to the customer, because it's his or her money that you're taking, right? So to explain to the customer that this is the feature that you have built, and this is the kind of data you need from the customer, you would authorize that data and then probably approve the application of the customer, right? So it's at each step of the way, at each click, you will need to get that user feedback to understand कि उसको कितना समझ में आ रहा है, whether he is understanding the journey or not, right? And then you go back and iterate it and reiterate it and make it perfect. So yes, definitely yes, we do user research, and it is not at all self-intuitive. It is a lot of back and forth with your user segments, a lot of focus groups, a lot of A/B testing, a lot of wireframing goes into the picture.
Got it. Thank you.
Great. So next question we have from Kishore. Kishore, would you like to say your question?
Done with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when someone updates in RBI guidelines,
I think we
related-
already have taken this.
Okay.
We can go next.
So the another question out here is, what is the weightage of technical skill sets during the TPM interviews and during the jobs?
Okay, thanks, Amina, for the question. Amina, may I know where you are working so that I can give you probably more suitable examples?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a pediatrician and there's a lot of disturbance here, so that's why I
Okay.
couldn't talk.
No worries.
Currently, I'm into a healthcare domain.
Okay.
And I've been working on database and data warehouse along with business intelligence reports.
Got it.
So
Got it.
recently, I
So-
got a call from one of the.
So, Amina, just you can go on mute.
So it was
Fine.
for a CPM role, and they're basically looking into cloud, Kubernetes, and other storage, cloud storage applications. So I just want to understand how do I prepare and what is the weightage, and how many rounds of technical interviews will be conducted.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to know.
Okay. So yes, definitely, Amina, if you are coming from that cloud space, from that database space, and if you're applying to those similar set of roles, you will be asked about, all the basics, all the advanced, and in fact, sometimes in TPM interviews, you are even asked to write algorithms. So in one of my Google interviews, I was asked to write a SQL query as well. So that happens, and as long as you are anyways from a technical skill set, so you will be sort of grilled on that. You will be asked on projects that you have worked in the past and what impact you have brought from your projects to the company, and what kind of technical skills you have applied, and what skill set you possess at the time. So definitely yes, but at the same time I would also tell you one thing, that uh, instead of actually going into the details of, let's say, Java or cloud based, or let's say Kubernetes and stuff, they would want to ask you the logic behind it. So if you built a product, why was it built in the first place? What was the impact that could be driven from that? What was the value proposition that you marketed to the customer? How was the product, what was the go-to-market strategy? So these kind of things would also be allied along with what technical stuff you did at the back end. So if you want to like sort of transition from a very, very core technical skill set to a product skill set, I would suggest that you start looking at the business side of things along with what you're doing technically. Even if it's like let's say in a cloud space, like you said, for a TPM, sometimes you are given tasks like to compare two cloud companies. So which servers would be best, or whether a hybrid cloud strategy would work for your product, or whether it should be like wholly on AWS, or whether it should be hybrid, or what kind of percentage should happen. So all of these things would come into picture when you're giving a TPM interview, let's say in a cloud space. So leverage that skill set, have that business knowledge, add on to it, and then probably sit for an interview. I think that's where you can crack it. So it's totally depending on which kind of companies you're sitting for. If somebody is essentially looking for that very, very core technical skill, they will definitely grill you on that.
Okay, thank you. That was quite helpful.
Thanks, Amina. So any more questions from the audience?
We do have a couple of minutes, guys, so you can ask. It could be anything not related to fintech or PM world as well. Cool. If not, then I'm also available on LinkedIn, guys. Tanya Singhania. You can search me, you can follow me, you can ping me if you have more questions or if you want any guidance. I'm always available, and you can DM me. I'm also available on the Pragmatic platform, so you can reach out to Rakhi on how you can book sessions with me.
I guess there are no more questions.
Yeah, one.
Yes,
Yeah,
Kishore.
someone said.
This is not related to the opportunity in the fintech product manager, but just general query we can say. Nowadays there are some online products in OTP things, like
Yes.
forwarding your messaging and call
Yeah, we've seen
forwarding.
Japara.
Yeah. So for that, is it possible? What is your opinion on that? Is it possible to switch from OTP to some other way, like a biometric thing?
Yes.
Likewise.
Yeah, Kishore. So in fact, you spoke about a very new age industry trend that's pretty trending in the market right now. It's biometrics. So yes, a lot of companies and players are looking at moving from, let's say, an OTP sort of a thing to a biometric thing. At the same time, I did an integration with Truecaller in my previous company. So you essentially do not get an OTP, but if you are on the Truecaller platform on your phone, and I think 90% of the Janta does have Truecaller on their phones, right? So you can just, if you're logged in into your Truecaller app and you also have our company's app, you will be without an OTP authenticated. And then there are social logins like Facebook login or Instagram login or Google login, right? So that also skips that OTP step out of that way. And one more thing that the companies are trying to do is to, achieve that perfect delivery of OTP rates with the telecom partners. So where they are making sure that, the right OTP is reached to the right person and there is no fraud or cyber attack in the middle. So a lot of tight scrutiny is happening at that end. And then coming to biometrics, yes, of course, a lot of these companies are looking at, retina scans or fingerprint or even smart wearable devices where you just need to, with a move of your wrist, you can just authenticate yourself or do a payment and you don't need to really do anything more. And I think the way is not only to just avoid OTP frauds, these frauds are happening in a lot of other ways as well. So one of the most essential things is awareness around it. So that's why you keep seeing a lot of disclaimers by RBI and, Satark Rahe and all those ads coming in TVCs, right? So it's very, very important to, have that financial awareness with the mass, especially the old segment, plus 40 plus or 50 plus segment, where people are still, very okay with giving out their information on phone because they are, getting scared by such calls or stuff like that. So you have to go and tell your parents, your grandparents, your relatives that, this is not something that you need to do. So all of that awareness is still happening. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in this field as well, with biometrics, with IoT, with AI, with machine learning. So, I think OTP would go off very soon from the market.
And also for the person who don't have even internet, like most of the people from the rural background, they having a simple phone.
Yeah.
How they will connect with the fintech field?
So I don't know if you know, but recently there was one startup, I am forgetting their name. They actually successfully made a payment transfer without internet. So the way they used were some links from the telecom provider and you send that link in the SMS to the, let's say, a Nokia phone, those button phones, and the user clicks on it, and then there is a voice, there's a IVR or there is some sort of
audio matching.
Sorry?
Audio matching.
Not audio matching. No. It's simple IVR where you need to authenticate yourself with, let's say, your CVV number or your phone number or your OTP. But yeah, very basics. I think Pranav,
and PCI has recently come up with this offline UPI as well. So it's like getting spread.
Correct. So that's one way that you can do it, and I'm sure that with the kind of internet penetration we have in India right now, it's closely approaching 60% plus. So very soon we would have those smartphones in, let's say, all hands in India. So moving towards that, the government is moving towards that.
Tanya, one question to you. Now we see different names of a product owner, analyst, and then many other things. So what is the actual hierarchy? Is there any hierarchy, or product owners are not product managers at all? What is business side product managers after all?
So there is no hierarchy per se. Sometimes, very, very rarely, in very product-based companies, product managers think that they are above POs. But for example, in my current role at Amex, I'm both PM and PO. So, a single person can be doing both the roles. So that also happens. So there is no hierarchy as such. Hierarchy only is in associate product manager, group product manager, lead product manager, and in the CPO. That's the hierarchy. And some of these bigger companies, they follow the assistant manager, senior manager, VP, AVP, VP, DP, these kind of things. So it is very, very company specific that, what designation or what band you are at in terms of product journey. But overall industry standard, PM, PO, TPM, they're all in the same bracket. There's no hierarchy.
Tanya, one question. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, continue.
Okay. Thanks. I want to know, because a few minutes back you have explained that if you come from a technical background or you have a technical, so you might face some technical based questions, right? But I have also heard from few of my friends, because this product management role is entirely new for me. I'm not a product, currently I'm in a business analyst role. So like, it's a nice to have requirement or good to have requirement, this technical skills for a product manager. Just wanted to know, like,
Yes,
like,
yes, obviously.
really-
See, it is not essential at all that you have to know all the technical skills or you have to be a coder to be a product manager. I'm not a coder. I can't write a single line of code. I'm still a product manager, right? But the essential part is that you have to understand code. You should be able to read APIs. You should be able to read algorithms. You should be able to direct your developers to as to what sort of uh, feature they are working on and what exactly should be the outcomes of that code, and then do that testing. If you have more skill set on the technical side, like you're saying that you will be still grilled on the business side of things. You will be asked questions more on the product side of things, your experiences, how you have added value to your previous project. So in all my product interviews, and I've given 100 plus product interviews, I have never seen people asking, tell me 2 frameworks of product management, or tell me prioritization frameworks, or tell me this and that. They will always ask you what you have done in your past and why do you think you will be a good fit for the product manager role here. So the way you leverage your experience, if you have delivered products as a coder in the past, as a software engineer, you can always say that you have worked on the business side of things as well. If you have been able to understand the requirements, build that code and ship out that product, then you are already halfway through the product management journey. So leverage your experience that way, and you can always say that you have been on the other side of table, so you can explain better to your engineers what products to make, what features to add, what innovations to do. So it'll be easier for you to tackle those scrum teams going forward. So that's where you sort of put yourself out there and tell the recruiter that you are better in these areas. And one thing I always tell everybody is that whatever background you come from, so be it software engineering or be it business analytics, or it could be business management, commercial background, accounting, anything, leverage that. See where your previous experience can extrapolate on the product management side. Quote examples in your interviews so that you can relate those 2 experiences, and then put yourself out there. So it'll really help out.
thank you.
Yeah, last question, Kishore.
Yeah, fine. So basically, with respect to security thing in fintech product, what are the things we have to consider as a product management manager? Like hacking and all those things are there. So what are the things we have to consider for that particular section, security?
See, cybersecurity, generally bigger companies have a separate team for cybersecurities, right? And there are fraud risks, compliance risks,
PCIDSS. Yeah.
PDSS. There are so many, different risks that pertains to when you're in a fintech product manager. You have to see that, where your product gives that exposure to fraudsters. Could it be through hacking? Could it be through phishing or data replicating, or, where you have to just build those firewalls around your product at each stage and figure out that, where you could be vulnerable to those attacks. And work very closely with your cybersecurity, with your legal marketing teams to understand that, how you can improve that. So, yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Tanya, one small question. What is the attrition rate in a PM for a PM role in a fintech company?
It varies. It totally varies. Like, ICICI would have an attrition rate of 10+%, and a small startup would have a 50%, right? So there's no industry standard per se, but yes, with new age fintechs coming and propping up every day like popcorns, the attrition rate in fintech is a little higher because of the opportunities. Because there's so many different places you can go to that today you are getting 20, tomorrow you are getting 30, then day after you're getting 40. So you have that lucration as a chalo bhi, let's jump.
No, I'm not. I understand if better opportunity people do jump. I'm not saying that.
You are
I'm just
saying
asking.
the letting go wala thing.
No. In terms of a satisfaction, like uh, uh, on a particular role, like because
So,
as you
yeah,
said earlier that PM आज के डेट में PM को कुछ भी करवा देते हैं, sales पे भी लगा देंगे जरूरत पड़े थे उनको.
yeah.
So on those terms, what actually you do?
I'll tell you, yes. So yes, from my own experience, fintech does have that little angle of, I would say non-satisfactory people, I think a little higher. And I'll tell you why. Because of the long product cycle. So to actually conceptualize and ship out a product in fintech now, it'll take 6 to 8 months. If you're in a bigger setup, I'm talking about, let's say, a trillion transactions sort of a scaled system. Now, because of the regulations, compliance, risks, 100 sign-offs you need to take, the product life cycle is a little longer. So what happens is at the end of your 1 or 2 years tenure, you're like, यार मैंने तो 3 ही product launch किए हैं, वो Flipkart में तो मेरे भाई ने 4 कर दिए या 6 कर दिए या 10 कर दिए, right? So that kind of then I would say that mindset creeps in that, okay, maybe probably I'm not moving at that faster speed as other players in the market or my competition or my peers. But what we need to understand is that fintech is one industry which has the highest opportunity at the moment. You can see around, like Meta has fired people or Twitter has fired people. These product based companies, they hire quickly and they fire quickly. But how many times have you heard ICICI fired people? Or when was the last time you heard Axis Bank fired people? Or a huge NBFC like Bajaj Finserv? I mean, their culture might be a little questionable because of some of the old mindset, old school people still sitting at the top. But then you will know they actually take care of your employees. So be it Airtel Pay or Airtel Payments Bank, Fino Pay. I mean, so many companies I can take examples of who take really good care of their employees. And Pine Labs is one example. So these are sort of the companies where you can actually create value. They are getting into newer segments every day. They're getting into newer technologies. Such technologies you will not even find anywhere else. There are so many players in crypto and investment portfolios nowadays, that you can learn so much. Then companies like Cred, right? They are into loyalty based programs. So many things that you can do in fintech, and there is so much of opportunity that even though the product life cycle is a little longer, I think this has the maximum opportunity to bring in innovation, bring in better products, more seamless experiences. But still to date, we are working on, let's say, old rules and old rails. What we need to do is to bring old rules with newer rails. Newer rails would mean new platforms, newer integrations, newer products, newer journeys. So that's where you add value.
Thank you, Tanya. That was great. And another thing, what should be the say average salary scale for a PM?
See, generally, again, it differs a lot. I had given a talk on the salary ranges in product management field. Raki, you can put up.
Frankly, like I'm saying
tentative session for that.
No, I'm saying
we can
tentatively.
Have a separate session
Can
for
I
that
say
as
something?
well.
Yeah.
Yes, Raki, please.
I have a point here.
Oh no, sorry, Vivek. Yeah, sorry.
Subrata, you can take the salary data from me for all the startups if you want.
Oh wow, Vivek, please give it to me also, man.
I'm an HR professional, so I would have that.
Please share it on the TM.
So no, I'm saying what is the tentative? I'm not saying that, like I'm saying what is the tentative range of that?
Yes, so it depends on the experience. A typical PM with, let's say, 2 to 3 experience starts anywhere between 10 to 20. Now, why such a bigger range is, it totally depends on which B schools you're coming from, which background you're